What's up, guys? Today we're going to go over all of the subclass changes coming with the final shape. This will be the first of 5 videos prepping me and you guys for the final shape, going over a few of the major articles and kind of highlighting the most important parts of each, not going over every single little detail, just the stuff that I think will actually affect the way we play the game and maybe create new builds or new metas. So this video will be the subclasses, next one will be about prismatic and some interesting combos I see. The third will be about the exotic class items and all the cool combos there. Fourth will be the exotic changes. And finally, the last one will be like a DPS preview for the final shape. So jumping into the subclass changes, I thought this was going to be longer than it was, just based off what I heard people talking about. But it's kind of a shorter article, but there are some very important changes. So starting off with Stasis. Stasis will be getting something called Frost Armor, almost equivalent to Woven Mail, but more intricate. Frost Armor is all about damage resist that grows stronger as you gain additional stacks. There's been multiple ways to not only get stacks, but make it so you get higher stacks. So at base, you can have up to 5 stacks, all 4.5% each, or a total of 22.5% damage resist, and each stack will last 9 seconds. But then with the Whisper of Rhyme Fragment, will go up to 13 seconds, and a maximum stacks of 8, now a total of 36% damage resistance, which is on par with Woven Mail. So how do you get these stacks of Frost Armor? Well, all 3 characters have a Harvest aspect. Along with what they already do, these aspects will now make it so on Shard Pickup, you get 1 stack of Frost Armor. Along with that, there's going to be some reworks to existing fragments to make it so that you can create shards or get Frost Armor. Whisper of Chill. Stasis weapons have a chance to create a shard. Whisper of Chains, chance to create a shard while you have Frost Armor. Whisper of Fractures, you'll get a Frost Armor stack when you shatter with your melee. But overall, it's all about picking up the shards with one of the Harvest aspects. So I think this will add a lot of usability to Stasis in harder content. And along with this DR from Frost Armor, Stasis as a whole is getting a buff to shatter damage, where shattering a frozen enemy is being buffed by 2x, so a full double damage increase. And the last thing I want to note about Stasis that I saw that might be a pretty big change is Silence and Squall. The Hunter Super is getting a 40% increase to its damage. So overall, I'm not sure how much this will move the needle for Stasis. I think it'll be a lot better, but compared to some of the other 3.0 builds and things like that, I'm not sure if it's going to be like the meta. It'll just be a lot more usable, and I'm definitely looking forward to trying it out. Now moving on to Strand. Strand got a lot of changes for Titan. Starting off, the Thread of Warding, the fragment where picking up an orb gives you Woven Mail, is now down to 5 seconds from 10, which is going to be a pretty noticeable change for Strand as a whole, more so on Hunter and Warlock. Warlock also got for Weaver's Call a chance to generate perched threadlings on Strand Final Blows, kind of nice. And now with all the Titan stuff and just grapple melees as a whole, grapple tangles, the things that you can create on Hunter or with the Navigator, will no longer fully refresh the duration every single time you grapple it. Now, the first time you grapple it will be plus 5 seconds. Then as you grapple it more and more, every single time will add less and less time, down to 1 second after 5 grapples. So the first grapple should be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then after that, every grapple will only add 1 second back. So first off, with this change, I think people are overreacting. Tangle points will still be available for nearly the entire duration of most boss damage phases in the game. Just the base duration and getting those plus 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1 from your initial ones, I think will be not really that noticeable for most situations. And I think this will still work mostly as it does already. And then for the grapple melee, you can no longer use the grapple melee after firing a weapon, which mostly affects PvP and some neutral play. I do this quite often, like going towards enemies, but once again, for boss fights and the way this combo works, most people shoot first, then grapple, then melee. So with this wording, it seems like that will still work. So once again, not really a big change here. Then Into the Fray will no longer be 4x melee recharge rate, it's going to be 3x now, which will make it so you get your charge melees less often, and that will be a noticeable change. And finally, for Banner of War itself, the max timer is down from 30 to 24 seconds, which I will say right off the bat, I don't think is that big of a change. As long as when you first get a melee kill, it goes up to 15 seconds at ×1. That doesn't really change anything for boss fights. That's what you do for most boss fights in the game. You just get the single one stack that first 15 seconds and go. But then if you're in a situation where you're just getting kills and using this in neutral play, and you're getting up to max timer, what's the difference if it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60? You're just going to constantly be taking it back up to max at all times. So it doesn't really matter if it's going 30, 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, or 23, 24, 23, 24. It's really not anything different. But the big changes are with Syntho steps, the melee modifiers have gone down. So for melees, it's down from a 1.4 to a 1.15 with Syntho. And the glaive is down from a 1.25 to a 1.125. And the supers are down from a 1.4 to a 1.2. And similarly with Wormgod, the melee is down from a 1.4 to 1.1. And the glaive a 1.4 to a 1.05. And this is a noticeable nerf. But once again, I don't think it's going to make this thing not meta. Like, Strand Titan is so good at everything right now that not only are these changes necessary, they might not be enough. Like, right now, you can more often than not one-hit a champion from full health in any tier of content with a single melee or single grapple melee. And yeah, I know the like melee change from a 1.4 to 1.15 is more than a 0.25 difference once you multiply everything together. But I still think Strand Titan is going to be great for just general play, for champions and all that stuff. I think the difference will be it's not just so much further ahead of everything else. It might be more in line now, which is a good thing overall. But the people thinking this is killing Strand Titan, I just think that is completely overreacting. And now moving on to Solar, first with Well of Radiance. Now, when you leave the well, you get Radiant for 8 seconds. They have reduced the healing across the board. Now it's 50% health per second, down from 100, which matches that of Restoration ×2. The heal on cast is down from 300 HP to 40. And the DR versus non-boss is now 20, down from 40. And versus bosses, the DR is now 10%, down from 40. So a lot of stuff to go over here. They're pushing Well to be more about the offense and less about the defense. And you can argue if you think Well was need to be nerfed or whatever. But overall, once again, I think people are slightly overreacting to this. Also, there aren't any other abilities in the game that you can put down and just simply heal your entire team for 30 seconds. Or give them a buff for 30 seconds. Like, Well will still be used all the time. It won't be as strong as it is currently. But that doesn't mean it still won't be used. It's still the only ability like this in the game. I'll still be using it on day one. I'm sure everyone else will be. We'll just have to see like how weak it feels. I'm sure there will be situations where you will need more than the Well, which I think is the point that they're going for here, and is overall probably a good thing. And every single activity in the game, just being able to put down a Well and just kind of forgetting about it, and it doesn't really matter what the boss is, melee, explosive, whatever the boss attack is, doesn't matter, I'm in a Well. I think having to think about potentially using another thing like a bubble or a banner shield, I think is what they're wanting, and I think it's going to be an interesting change to see how that all works. So continuing with Solar, the Golden Gun, they're reducing the strength of orbs when you hit a boss, making the strength 0.4x down from 0.75, and then with Star Eaters all the way down to 0.35, making it so you can't chain Golden Guns as a full team. The final thing on Solar is I have the Consecration being a 20% damage buff. I like this melee a lot when it first came out, so I'm interested to maybe making a new build with this in the final shape. Now for the arc changes, not too many here to note. First off, the Thunderclap, there's going to be DR once you use the ability, which will just make it a little bit easier to use. And there's one melee from each character that got this similar change with the DR, but Thunderclap also got 20 up to 33% more damage in PvE, depending on how charged up it is. I really liked Thunderclap when it came out, like a lot. It was one of my favorite builds, and obviously it's been overshadowed by like Strand and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see with the Strand nerfs and this being buffed, just returning to this build and using it again. Knockout now is a 50% increase up from 25% on your melee for your melee damage. Instead of starting health regen, now it's 50 to 100 health on melee kill. And finally, a few of the grenades got some damage buffs. Storm got 20%, not including the Titan aspect. Skips were 15 and arc bolts were 15 also. Moving on to Void, the last subclass. So this will be mainly about bubble. Now you get an overshield while inside the bubble, and while nearby, you'll passively build up the overshield, similar to being next to a Bastion barricade. Weapons of Light has been moved to Helm of Saint 14 and no longer part of the base bubble. And now we have a 60% DR inside the bubble. They say it should be the same as it was before inside. Main difference here is no longer having Weapons of Light and being able to get overshield while outside the bubble. And these changes, I'm not sure if they'll make bubble more useful. They're trying to push bubble into defensive while well is offensive. But I think if you're doing this, I kind of see Banner Shield being the better play. Banner Shield, obviously, you give up one person's ability to do DPS, while this you don't. So it'll just be interesting to see where the meta lands in the final shape between well, bubble, and Banner Shield and things like that. But it'll definitely be different, and I'm looking forward to that. And finally with Void, the Nova Bombs are finally getting a damage buff, which they've needed for a long time. After Vanilla, they kind of fell off in terms of DPS. So the changes are Cataclysm is up to 6 Seekers from 4, and the Vortex will last 10 seconds up from 7. Should help Nova a little bit. Will it be the same as a Golden Gun? Probably not. And finally, the last change to go over is some of the abilities got some buffs, kind of like Arc. Chill Throw is 20%. Chaos Accelerant Magnetics are 20%. And finally, the Pocket Singularity is 50%. So those are all the changes I want to go over. If you want to see every single change yourself, you can go ahead and check out the article. I think the ones I went over are the ones that will potentially make a build usable finally, or kind of make a build not usable. Yeah, this is my first of the 5 videos leading up to the final shape. Let me know what of these changes you're most excited for. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.